I've got a weird infatuation with compact tech, and even more so when that tech is incredibly powerful. Now, up until recently, I had been on the search for a new compact gaming PC for my desk setup, and with that, the options were to build out a smaller RTX PC, settle for something a little bit larger, or to consider going with a gaming laptop. None of which truly did the trick for me, since I really did just want even tinier than that. So when this ROG NUC 970 caught my eye at CES earlier this year, I couldn't help but be super interested. Now, as somebody who really digs the console space, it's wild to me that this tiny PC is leaps ahead in terms of raw power. This entire gaming PC is about the length of a bag of milk, and it somehow has an RTX 4070 in it, making it a beast when it comes down to 1440p gaming, and even some titles at 4K. Now, to be clear, I'm far from smart when it comes down to PC stuff. I barely know how to turn one on, build one, and I don't really run benchmarks or any of that stuff. So this is just a review of this mini PC from an everyday gamer perspective. A huge thanks to LG Ultra Gear for sponsoring today's video. They do have $500 off Amazon Prime Day deals up until July 22nd, but more on that in a bit. Now, as for my use case with this mini PC, that's mainly just going to be gaming, some productive work, and media consumption. Now, let me be real as well. This is a super niche product, meaning it is expensive. It's going to be more expensive than a self-built 4070 desktop or even equivalently spec'd laptops. With that, what makes this special is that outside of my particular use case with gaming, this thing can really be put just about anywhere you might want, from a bookshelf to a TV setup and just about any desk setup. This is a 2.5 liter PC chassis, which comes in weighing at about 6 pounds. And as for the dimensions, this comes in at 7 inches in depth, about 10.5 inches tall, and 2 inches wide. As for what's in the box, it only comes with 3 things: the 970 NUC itself, a vertical stand, as well as the power supply. Now, I'm personally going to be using the vertical stand in my setup since I really just prefer how it looks, how it even takes up less desk space this way, and the fact that this PC has bottom ventilation. I imagine having it in the vertical setup would help with thermals a bit, although I probably won't be measuring that anyways. Still, this PC does look incredible. It's tiny, minimal, non-invasive, and even the tiny RGB is tasteful. In terms of what to expect for specs, this particular ROG NUC has 2 configurations, one with an RTX 4060 and an i7, and another which is the one I have. This one has Intel's new i9 i85H chipset, an RTX 4070 laptop version, 32GB of RAM, and 1TB of storage. As for the Intel i9 185H, I really have no clue where this stands compared to normal i7s or i9s and all that, but this is from their brand new Meteor Lake chip lineup. In short, my understanding is that this CPU particularly has neural processing units for all that fancy AI stuff coming out right now, better integrated graphics, and an apparent huge leap in battery life, not that this one really matters for this PC. As for RAM, you do have 32 gigs as mentioned, but opening this thing up, we do have the ability to expand this up to 64 gigabytes of RAM if you're really trying to squeeze everything out of this tiny PC. Likewise, for your games, 1TB is what's installed right off the bat, but there are 3 total Gen 4 M.2 SSD slots, so you can pump this up to 8TB of SSD storage. As mentioned too, this does have an RTX 4070 mobile with 8GB of VRAM, which does make this a great option for 1080p, 1440p, and even some 4K gaming with frame generation. For me particularly, my main gaming use is going to be a mix of FPS games like Overwatch, RPGs like Diablo 4, and sandbox games like Red Dead Redemption 2. In my use case, I'm currently gaming on LG's new 32GS95UE, which I've been personally using for about 3 months now. For me, it's just an incredibly versatile monitor for just about every single thing I might do on here, from content creation to my evening studies, and most importantly, all of my gaming. With this PC particularly, some games are going to run at 1080p, some games at 1440p, and others at 4K. For this monitor, this is a 4K 240Hz OLED monitor, which gives deep blacks and punchy colors regardless of what's on screen. What does it for me though is whenever I'm playing FPS games is using the dual mode feature, which does turn this display from 4K 240Hz to 1080p at 480Hz, which is perfect for whenever I'm playing something a little bit more competitive. With a 0.03 millisecond response time, everything here is near instant while playing as well. Pair that with the built-in Pixel sound speakers, this seriously makes an incredible all-in-one monitor for just about any gaming setup. Save up to $500 on LG Ultra Gear during Amazon Prime Day with LG Prime Day deals available until July 22nd. Check the link down below in the video description to learn more, and thanks again to LG for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Now, as mentioned, my main FPS game is going to be Overwatch 2, which I have been playing since its beta. On this NUC with its RTX 4070, I'm surprisingly pushing somewhere between 320 and 400 FPS in Overwatch Overwatch on low settings with the 480Hz dual mode, since I can find this to be the best way to get my competitive fix. If you're curious about the 4K frames I'm getting in Overwatch, this can push out about 150 to 210 FPS depending on the map you're playing, and of course other additional settings. With that, realistically this PC is more a 1440p monster, so if I am going to be forcing 1440p, or if I'm on a 1440p display, I'm going to be getting about 140 FPS in Diablo 4 without any sort of frame gen. Now personally, as a console gamer, I'm totally content with upscaled content or frame generation technology, so this PC fits right in for me. If I'm hopping into one of my all-time favorite games like Red Dead Redemption 2, I'm somehow able to pull a solid 40 FPS on medium settings in 4K, and that to me is incredible. And if you're okay enabling frame generation, I'm getting all the way up to 60 FPS in Red Dead 2 in a native 4K. Again, to me that's incredibly impressive considering this only has 8 gigs of VRAM. Now checking NVIDIA or the ASUS Armory crate, my temps are higher than what I would typically see on my RTX 4090 rig, naturally of course, but honestly I don't particularly care as long as the thermals aren't damaging and I'm not really seeing any major throttling. As for the fans and loudness, yeah, it's audible while gaming, but in truth I usually do have some sort of headset when I am gaming, so I don't really think this is an issue for me at least. There are some presets in the ASUS Armory as well if you do want to fiddle around with the fan settings and the different performance presets, and I'm sure there's going to be more customizable third-party software if you want to get right into that. With that, again, this tiny beastly PC does an incredible job across 1080p, 1440p, and 4K from the perspective of a normie like myself. I know there's some better stuff out there in terms of what you can get for your money, but this still impresses me either way. Now, from an I/O standpoint, this has plenty, starting with 2 display ports, 1 HDMI 2.1, and surprisingly, it has a Thunderbolt 4 with DisplayPort 2.1 support if you do have a compatible monitor. I tested this on an Apple Studio display, which worked well, albeit it's unlikely you're going to be gaming on this sort of display. Apart from that though, you do have 4 Gen 2 USB 3.2 ports, 2 on the front with 2 on the back side, alongside 2 additional Type A 2.0 ports. As for USB, I could have only wished for another Type C port instead, which would have been nice. There's also a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet jack, as well as Wi-Fi 6E support, so you are going to be connected pretty well depending on your ISP setup. And lastly, there is a front-facing audio jack and an SD Express reader, which works well for anybody working with larger files or doing any sort of creative work. Now with all of this, it goes without saying this PC flies through everything else, whether it be everyday things like watching media, educational and busy work, and I'm sure this does well for creative work. I personally use a Mac for all my creative needs, so this isn't particularly something I'll be doing on this machine since I am just using this for gaming. One thing I am looking forward to finding out is the use case for the NPUs on this new Intel chip, since apparently it's great for AI, although I'm not quite sure what Microsoft has for local AI uses right now. If you know what the best use case for that would be, please let me know in the comment section. I'd legitimately love to know. Now, with everything I've talked about for this tiny PC, who is it for and why does it exist? Honestly, my first thought is that this is really just for the small tech enthusiasts like myself who are actually okay with paying more for tiny form factor products. And like I mentioned, an equally spec'd laptop would probably be cheaper than this, but up here in Canada, this 4070 variant runs about $3,000 Canadian, which is about $2,200 US. So yeah, price-wise, it's definitely up there. Still, there's always the 4060 i7 model that does come in less, but clearly ASUS knows what's up when it comes down to a good product, because it seems all of these models right now are straight up sold out, so good luck finding one. Apart from the small tech enthusiast, I could see this being great for anybody who simply wants to move around their PC a lot. I mean, this thing fits just about anywhere, in any setup, and it's super inconspicuous for anybody looking to have this in their living room setup. Likewise, this lends itself to anybody who needs a travel PC where you can pack this up super easily if you need to, only weighing at about 2,700 grams, which is about 6 pounds. Overall, again, I've got this weird infatuation with all this tiny tech, especially when it's somehow actually powerful. I'm okay with frame gen and upscaling outside of my FPS games, so this really hits the spot for me, and it impresses me that this tiny PC can do what it does. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. I appreciate you watching till the end. Till next time.